Please help yourself out there. Coming up next, we have Benjamin Brown talking, well, he's going to talk, so I'm not going to tell you what he's going to talk about because that seems silly. Sorry to be repetitive. Please check out the CTFs. They have great prizes, and actually it's really worth competing out there because they have some pretty nice gear from Hack 5 and stuff like that. So check it out, and other than that, I'll hand it to Ben.
All right, hey everybody. This talk is taking a look at account checkers or account stuffers reusing credentials across websites to gain access to accounts, and then looking at how profit is made off of that. So a little bit about myself. I work for Akamai Technologies. I focus mostly on darknet and cybercrime research. I also do IR stuff, both internally and for customers who are being attacked. I also do a number of security trainings and workshops, including things like technical incident management, stuff like that. Also, our team gets to do some fun stuff that's sort of chaos monkey work. We get to make our other BUs and teams upset because we break their stuff, which is a lot of fun. So pretty much the four main sections of this talk are going to be talking about some real-life incident response with these account checker gangs, looking at some of the tools that they use, and then looking at the darknet markets and the rewards fraud that's related to these account checker gangs, and then looking at how they might launder some of their ill-gotten goods. So what we saw both last year and this year with the activities with the account checkers is it was across industry. It wasn't just focused on one industry. The three biggest ones were retail, travel, and hospitality. And we saw a lot of focus on accounts that have a rewards program or system in place. The type of traffic that we saw was coming a lot from botnets and tools that were using rolling proxies. We saw a bunch of Holo VPN IPs. We saw some Mac botnet stuff. We saw a lot of shared hosting, and we saw a lot of home routers, which was really interesting. This year, a change from last year, we're starting to see some IoT devices as well in the mix, which is really cool. We'll have a research paper coming out on that more specifically later in the year. The actual activity that we saw, we would see them run for about 12 hours straight, and then it would suddenly cut off and be dead for a while, and then 12 hours straight and then cut off and be dead for a while. We also saw that these 12-hour blocks did not coincide very much with typical US working hours. That's just a single data point. You can't really make a whole lot of assumptions around that, but within the context, it is useful data. We saw that they adapted very quickly to both when we put in geo blocks for IPs, and then also when we were serving up 403 errors to their traffic. Some of the measures that we found were semi-effective against these account checker gangs were blacklisting whole IP blocks, and putting rate controls on login URLs or login APIs, things like that. And also checking for valid referrers, especially the lower level attackers. They would use tools that didn't have valid referrers in them, or they didn't craft them properly, and we could flag on those. We did find some tactics that were really effective against these gangs. Adding additional login info to the login sites really screwed up their automated idea of what the website should look like for logins. So asking for more information like a last name or something like that was effective for a while. Also, updating mobile and API login logic to be as robust as the main website's login functionality. A lot of times when you look at a website that has accounts and then you look at their APIs or their mobile logins, it's a lot simpler. Also, we found that a lot of companies had legacy login paths that they didn't even know were there that were getting targeted, so that was really interesting. So nuking those helped a lot. Also, instead of blocking the attacker traffic, when we started tar pitting it and long routing their requests because we could just move it around the globe to make it take forever, then that was really effective too, because then their scripts would just hang instead of going on to the next set of credentials. And then something that I thought was really funny, some of our customers opted to take this advice and started serving up to known attacker IPs fake "you've been successfully logged in" landing pages that were cached. So what would happen is the attack script would say, "Hey, this credential is valid," when it wasn't, and then they would move on to the next set of credentials. "Hey, it's valid," when it wasn't. So it gave the attackers a lot of bad information, and I'm sure pissed them off. So in looking at some of the tools, there's a bunch of account checkers that are just like web-based and pretty simple. Here's one that's active right now that allows you to check Walmart accounts. And you would put in the username or email address and then a pipe and then the password. And then you would just list them all there. And you can change what you're delimiting between the login name and the password. You can also say how many passwords you want to check per username. And then you can automatically have it scrape and get information about the account using this web script. You can also add a whole bunch of proxies over on the right screen. Another one I saw, this one was specifically for PayPal. It's the PayPal private checker. Excuse me, the PayPal privat checker. I don't know, spelling error there. This one is, looks a little more elite, but it's essentially the same functionality as the Walmart one. So there are also some ones you can download locally to use. If you're going to be doing account checking, I would highly suggest you do this because they're all backdoored. If you're doing research, then of course, have your sandbox, have your VM, and look at the interesting traffic to see where it's calling back. But here's one for checking Netflix accounts. It's very simple. Again, it tells you which ones are working or not working. This one does not have proxy support. And then here's one for checking League of Legends accounts, gaining access to those. Again, very simple, tells you if it was successful or not, and just username and passwords. Again, this one does not have support for proxies. So one of the more advanced pieces of software we saw in use was called Sentry MBA. And what this is, it's a core program for account checking or account stuffing. And then it has a whole bunch of configurations that you can either purchase or download from others that are known good configurations for different websites' logins. And then you would just load those into Sentry MBA. Some of the features of the latest version that I've seen is it has proxy support for a whole bunch of proxies. You can also pipe in updating proxies. So a website or a private proxy tracker, it could hook into that and constantly update its own proxies. There's also a proxy debugger to see what's going on, why it's being slow, things like that. And there's also an HTTP and URL debugger for the logins. And the latest version had something new that was really interesting. It has OCR for trying to solve CAPTCHAs automatically, which that doesn't work on the more advanced reCAPTCHA, but it does work for the simple CAPTCHA solutions. Also, it has browser fingerprint spoofing, so you can pretend you're a different browser on a different machine. Also, you can spoof refer headers, and you can customize your user agents. So here's what the default request headers for the program looks like. That's the order that they're in. It's really simple. And a lot of people who use this program don't change them. So that's good to look for in your traffic logs. Also, the default user agents, and you guys can get access to the slides if that's hard to read. But yeah, checking your logs for these is always a good thing. Because a lot of people do not, again, change the default user agent strings when they use this program. In fact, one of the places you can download this program in the forum post, it specifically says, do not modify the headers unless you really know what you're doing. So they're essentially making people dumber, which is great because they're skitties. So let's take a look at the tool. This is version 1.5, and that's the latest version. And you can see here it has all the different settings that you can check. You can change the username and password, what the combination looks like, and how you filter it. You can also set timeouts and delays to try and get under the radar of either load balancers or people who are trying to limit how often a certain IP or set of IPs is contacting them, so rate limiting. You can also load in snapshots of known good sessions for this program, which is useful. And here is what the proxy list looks like. And you can load, batches of proxies, or you can use, you can hook in on updating proxies. And here's the area that a lot of people who use this don't even use. This is where you can customize the request header and user agent strings, which is a really cool feature, but again, a lot of people don't actually use it. So I do want to point out that those were the simpler stuffers and checkers, and there are some larger organized crime groups that are also doing account checking, and they use more sophisticated programs and scripts, and they tend to leverage botnets and private proxies instead of public proxies. All right, so I wanted to find out, A, why they were doing this, and B, like, what sort of profit model do they have in mind here? How do they get these vouchers that they steal from the rewards programs, the rewards points themselves, or the air miles? Like, what are they actually doing with them? How do they turn them into money? So I decided the first place I'll look is the darknet Tor markets. And I wanted to, narrow my scope in which markets I looked at, because there are a lot of markets out there now. So I, of course, wanted to look at only active or live markets with an uptime greater than 95%. And I wanted popular ones. So I made sure that the markets I chose had Google search impressions greater than 60,000 and Google keywords greater than 100. So that led me to Alpha Bay, Dream Market, and Nucleus Market, which at the time, a few months ago, was the largest 3 markets. Now, as of a month and a half ago, Nucleus Market has disappeared. It looks like it was an exit scam, but nobody knows for sure right now. So I did a cursory look to see if there were actually rewards fraud-related stuff on these markets, and sure enough, there was. There were lots of vouchers for food places, for spas and resorts. And there were train e-vouchers and tickets for sale. There were a lot of e-cards and actual physical gift cards as well that were gotten through hijacked or hacked rewards accounts. A lot of Whole Foods cards. That was really interesting. I was expecting to see more like Walmart and gaming cards, but most of them were Whole Foods and Panera. There are, of course, just points and miles for sale as well. Lots of GameStop points, and as well as a bunch of miles from mostly European airlines. And I'll talk about why a little later. So in terms of overall numbers, what I saw was digital goods that were for sale on these markets, accounts, malware, e-gift cards. There were 14,183 unique listings. For fraud-related stuff, that's like credit card numbers for sale, bank drops, and personally identifiable information. That's 15,426 different items for sale. So for the actual just login information itself for rewards accounts, I saw 20 different listings by 7 different vendors, resulting in 2,014 unique sales. For vouchers and e-gift cards themselves, there were 54 different listings across 13 different vendors, totaling in 3,136 unique sales. For transferable rewards points, like we saw the GameStop points, excuse me, there were only 3 listings across 3 different vendors, but they had 698 confirmed sales. So these 3 vendors pretty much had the market cornered on this, and we're doing pretty well. Now for air miles, there were only 4 listings across 4 vendors for 100 total sales. This was really low, so I wanted to find out what was going on here. And it turns out that a lot of American airlines within the past couple years have been responding to this kind of fraud and really locking down what the requirements are for transferring points between accounts. So the air miles became less fungible of a commodity. Now, The thing that really blew me away that I did not expect to see was that the largest use of all these rewards accounts being popped, especially the hospitality and travel ones, were something called criminal travel agents. These were people who would set up your, your flight, your car rental, your hotel, your cruise, whatever, using stolen accounts. So there were 93 different listings that were general listings for any of these services. There were 94 custom listings where somebody asked for something special. And there were 31 different vendors offering this service. And the sales numbers? 4,808 sales. I mean, I would feel super sketch going on a trip using this stuff, but apparently people loved it because the reviews were just rave reviews across the board. It was crazy. So in context, this was over a 10-month timeline that this data is talking about. So within 10 months, on only 3 of the markets, there were 10,756 fraud-related sales looking at rewards and rewards points. And one of the great things about hacking these accounts for these attackers was that a lot of people save their credit card information to their rewards accounts, so they can just use that to buy other stuff. And there's also personal information that can be gleaned from hacked accounts, addresses, phone numbers, stuff like that, that can then be packaged up and sold as PII or fulls. There's also cross-program fraud because a lot of rewards programs are starting to hook up with other rewards programs, so you only have to attack one to be able to get access to like 5 other rewards programs. Also, when you're done with it, you could just sell the account itself after you've either scraped the stuff off or did what you want with it. A lot of these actually will tell you, hey, there's a credit card attached to the account still, or that it has a bunch of freebies or stuff that the account has already bought that would make it more valuable. All right, so they're getting these bitcoins, right? But they're dirty bitcoins because they're related to fraud-related sales. How do they actually turn that into money that they can use without being traced? So one of the first steps that a lot of them will take is to put it through a Bitcoin tumbler. Now what a Bitcoin tumbler does is it takes your Bitcoins and then a whole bunch of other people's Bitcoins that are also using this service, and then Bitcoins that the tumbler has in reserve, and mixes them all together, and then creates a whole bunch of different wallets, Bitcoin wallets, and then transactions, and just does a whole bunch of crazy transactions to obfuscate the ledger activity. And then, of course, they pop out the Bitcoins to you, and it's been all obfuscated and mixed up. There are 2 onion router markets that offer mixing services, Alpha Bay and Outlaw Market. I would not trust either of them. There are also specifically tumbling services. Helix by Grams is one of the most well-known ones, and Bitcoin Fog is arguably the second better-known one. There's also BitMixer and Bitcoin Blender, and those are relatively newer. PayShield is really interesting because it is run by Sigaint. I'm sure if you've dealt with any of the Bitcoin ransom DDoSers, you're familiar with Sigaint because it's an anonymous email address that a lot of blackmailers or ransomers will use. So how Helix itself works is you can add a random delay and send multiple transactions. If you're looking to obfuscate, you definitely want to have those on. I don't know why they're not on by default, but what that'll do is it won't just have Bitcoins in and then the same number of Bitcoins out to one address because that's really easy to trace. So it'll send multiple different numbered denomination transactions to different wallets that you have if you want, and then add random delays between those transactions. One thing to keep in mind, obfuscation does not equal anonymity. As much as somebody wants to tell you Bitcoin is anonymous, it is not. Every transaction that happens across the Bitcoin network is public and available to anyone who wants to look at it. A tool for looking at such a thing is blockchain.info's taint analysis. And when they're talking about analyzing the taint, I'm really trying not to laugh like a middle schooler right now. So what they say the taint is the percentage of funds received by an address that can be traced back to another address. So it looks at how much of a relationship or interaction two different Bitcoin wallets or addresses have between each other. When you start to add that to the context of the overall transactions of suspect wallets, then you can start to build a picture of how the relationship models work there. Sometimes it's easy to do it in a list view, but because humans are such visual creatures, it's usually better to do it in a sort of graphic view like this. Blockseer is another cool tool, and they allow you to look at transactions in in this sort of manner. And what you're seeing right now is actually the outlay of the Silk Road, the confiscated Bitcoins, and by the FBI, and then when they were sold to Tim Draper, ITBit, and a couple other folks. There's another tool that looks more like you would be used to if you use Maltego. And this is a Chainalysis reactor program. And again, it allows you to see the relationships between different wallets. If you prefer more of a tree view, Numisite does that. This is a really cool program. And it allows you to see, again, the relationships and the movements of different transactions of Bitcoin. So this is a really simple example. This is an example of 1/3 of 3 pages of what looks like this. That is a single Helix tumbling transaction. So when you put your Bitcoins through a tumbler, it really does obfuscate a lot and make it very hard to trace, but of course it's completely traceable. There's a bunch of research being done on Bitcoin tracing as well. Qin Zhao at the Iowa State, his paper on graph-based forensic investigation is pretty cool. BitIodine, they're extracting intelligence from the Bitcoin network over in Italy. That's a great paper as well. But 2 of my favorite papers right now on this is Dan O'Farron, who actually made Numisite, the tree-based graph we saw earlier. He has a preliminary field guide for Bitcoin transaction patterns, and it really gives you an idea of what the typical transaction patterns on the network are, so you can start to notice them quicker when you're doing pattern analysis. Also, Sarah Meiklejohn, I'm a total fanboy of pretty much all her research, but she has a piece called A Fistful of Bitcoins, characterizing payments among men with no names, which she did originally back in like 2012, but she since updated it this year with new information, and it's really worth reading. All right, so there's all this tracing research and all these programs to go ahead and find out what's going on with Bitcoin transactions. So as somebody who wants to clean your Bitcoins, you're like, well, is there anything that I can do? There is. So stealth transactions is something that's being proposed right now within the community. And what it is, it's an implementation of Diffie-Hellman. And I'll explain it with colors being the secrets here instead of keys themselves. There you have Matt and Ben that want to trade some information, and they want to do it securely. But of course, there's always friendly third-party observers that they have to worry about. Matt and Ben, they publicly agree to exchange the color yellow. Of course, them and anyone else listening on the line would know that they've shared the color yellow with each other. So Matt and Ben decide to mix their private colors, blue and red respectively, with the shared color, creating a new unique color mixture. So, of course, Matt now has green and Ben has orange. So now Matt and Ben exchange these new colors with each other. So now they share each other's mixed colors as well as the original color. And of course, all 3 of these is observed by whoever is the third party observing. Now, what do we do about that third party? Well, when Matt and Ben go to the next step to go ahead and mix their private keys with the color mixture again, what it does is it makes it the same color for Matt as Ben, but the third party observer does not get that same color. So Matt's final color will be red plus yellow plus, or blue plus yellow plus red, which will equal the same color. Ben's final color will be red plus yellow plus blue, which will equal the same color. Now the observer is stuck with choosing between yellow plus blue plus yellow plus red plus yellow, which is not the same color, or yellow plus green plus orange, also not the same color. So the final color is a secret shared only between Matt and Ben, even if there is a third-party observer. Now, Dark Wallet is pretty much the only wallet I know that is purporting to use this right now because it's still very much in alpha. Dark Wallet supports, of course, these stealth transactions and multi-signature cooperative wallets. Those are mostly used for markets and forums when they're setting up something like a shop. It also allows escrow, which is great. As a third party, if you're doing a transaction between two people, having an escrow is nice, especially if it's a trusted escrow. And then they also implement CoinJoin mixing. Well, what is CoinJoin mixing? Well, without CoinJoin, a typical Bitcoin transaction looks like, okay, there's 20 Bitcoins, Ted gets 15 of them, and Bob gets 5 Bitcoins back in change of the 20 he put in. The transaction 2, you have Alice putting in 10 Bitcoins, Carol gets her 8, and then Alice gets the 2 left over. So what CoinJoin does is it takes these individual transactions and then mashes them together into a single transaction. So it obfuscates who put in what and who's getting what, and how those transactions have crossed paths. Now, in theory, that's a great idea because you're not being able to break down and trace each individual transaction. But there are some issues. Most of the services offering CoinJoin mixing are centralized. So that service gets popped, and hey, the listener now has full control over the CoinJoin transactions. Also, it's still very much susceptible to statistical analysis, and there's a tool that does just this. It's called CoinJoin Sudoku, and it finds common ownership of multiple transaction input and output groups by looking at the ingoing and outgoing amounts of each of the transactions. And then it uses statistical analysis to theorize on what the transactions are individually instead of in the CoinJoin model. Now, Dark Wallet is an extreme alpha, so it is not stable or safe, and use it with real money only at your own risk. Unless you're doing really shady shit, then you should definitely use Dark Wallet right now because it's not stable. Dash, formerly known as Darkcoin, and ZeroCoin already have automatically within their coin software networks mixing services as just default transaction resources. Now, if they don't want to go through all these alt currencies or dealing with the very alpha dark wallet or something like that, to get their money out, they could just throw the Bitcoins onto a Bitcoin credit card and then pull the money out and run. A couple issues with that. When they physically take out cash, there's ATM and bank cameras, there's other people, stuff like that. Also, almost all of these Bitcoin credit cards are backed by new or small Eastern European financial institutes. Super shady. And they have short lifespans. They pop up and die all the time. Another option is tangible goods. So what you can do is use these dirty Bitcoins to buy, really high-end goods or electronics, and then turn around and sell those for cash on, using services like Wallapop or Craigslist or Backpage. There are a couple other things you can do with that Bitcoin too. You can take this Bitcoin and convert it into precious metals or gift cards or into money packs, vanillas, pivot cards, pretty much the preloaded credit cards. Now, the darknet markets do sell or purport to sell a bunch of precious metals. Here's on Handsome Market an offering for Pandora sterling silver. There's 10-ounce silver bars. And the issue here is that on all these markets that are selling these gold and silver and other precious metals, is right next to these listings are listings for fake versions of them. So yeah, have fun choosing or deciding which one you actually get in the mail. But not a problem, because just recently a lot of the main purveyors of precious metals and silver coins, gold coins, things like that have just started accepting Bitcoin directly. So Amagi and JM are arguably the largest resellers of precious metals, especially in coin form. Yeah, all four of these accept Bitcoin now. Buying gift cards, again, you can do that on the dark web. Lots of Panera and Whole Foods, and you get a pretty hefty discount. and usually that's because they're stolen or bought with stolen credit card information. The one at the top you see is he tells you very emphatically that it is not carded, which probably means it is. There's also Bitcoin exchange services. The people will charge a 10% fee for exchanging your Bitcoins into either MoneyPack or vanilla prepaid credit cards. 10% is pretty high, but that's an option for you if you're doing that. Or you can convert your Bitcoin into not so precious materials. I swear to God, this is a real listing for brick on the darknet markets. Unfortunately, guys, they only ship to Europe, so sorry. You're out of luck there. But yeah, $15 for a brick. That's crazy. So some of the issues with actually dealing with any of these tangible goods to try and get your money out is receiving and sending shady goods exposes your home or business address that you're using for this. Also, if you decide to go with a PO box, it requires an ID to open. There are cameras, of course, there and employees that you have to deal with. If you decide to use an abandoned drop, like say a business or somebody's home who has been foreclosed on, or they're out of town for a vacation, or they've just recently abandoned the house, you don't know if there will actually be a delivery there. You don't know if the mail will get forwarded. Also, it looks super fucking suspicious if nobody's supposed to live there and mail's getting delivered and there's somebody picking it up late at night. So yeah. Also, in all of this, you have to worry about controlled deliveries. What's a controlled delivery? A controlled delivery is where a law enforcement officer poses as someone that's delivering mail or packages, gets you to sign for the package, and then slaps on the cuffs. So, yeah. But there's a cute way around this. This is called the triangulation fraud, and it's used a lot with eBay, but can be used with tons of other platforms as well. So an unsuspecting legitimate customer will go and say, oh, I like this item that you've posted for sale, and I'll pay for it with my credit card or whatever, and order it from you. Now, the fraudulent seller doesn't actually have that item in stock. What they're doing is they're using their stolen credit card or they're using their dirty Bitcoins to go ahead and buy the item that was ordered. And then instead of shipping it to them and then reshipping it to the customer, they just ship it through the legitimate e-commerce website directly to the unsuspecting customer. So the fraudster never actually touches any of the goods that go to the customer. Now, what does that mean? That means when the cops start investigating this, they go to the person who bought something that was stolen or bought with stolen stuff that didn't even know it. So that's triangulation fraud. There are also another two rather interesting ways of getting your Bitcoins into other monetary forms. One of them is scamming Uber and Lyft. It's a system called ghostwriting. And what you do is you buy on the darknet forums a bunch of stolen or hacked writer accounts. You can buy them both off the darknet markets, but there's also a bunch of forums that sell them. There are hacked smartphones that you can buy as well that run multiple instances of Uber/Lyft, the driver software. There are also private forums of what are called ghost dispatchers. In Asia, they call them ghost nurses for some reason. I have no idea why. But what they do is they can inject targeted pickups that aren't actual people, but inject it into the software so it pops up right near where you are as a driver. There are also custom GPS software that if you put it on the driver's phone, supposedly it tricks the driving app to think that you're going along the route when you're actually just sitting still. I haven't been able to get my hands on the actual software, so I can't say that that's actually what it does, but I'd love to see that. If anybody does have a sample of that software, please hit me up. Another cool thing you can do is Bitcoin casinos. So they will usually give you bonuses for depositing Bitcoins. And so you get, put your dirty Bitcoins in, you get your deposit out, and all of these have like reviews of what they do and how many games they have and what they take and stuff like that. And the funny thing is they tell you whether or not Americans can use the site, even though it's illegal here, which is hilarious. But also, So what you do is you take the dirty Bitcoins, you turn it into chips, you do a little bit of low risk gambling, and then you go ahead and get clean Bitcoins out that have been mixed up with all the other patrons of that gambling site. Now, what are some problems with this? Local laws may just make it that you're not only doing wire fraud and money laundering, but now you're also illegally gambling. So charges are stacking. Also, casinos have been known to perform an exit scam once they hit a certain level of people that have given them Bitcoins. Before the people can take their money out, the site will just disappear and the people will run off to Eastern Europe or something. It's also, if the casino doesn't have a lot of players using a lot of money, there's high traceability between the Bitcoins that go in and the Bitcoins that come out. Also, there's a lot of wagering requirements for the withdrawal of your Bitcoins. They say you have to spend this much money in bets before you can take any money out. There are also alternative payment services that you can trade Bitcoin for. PayPal, Skrill, formerly Moneybookers, Google Wallet, and then of course wiring funds, Western Union, RIA, MoneyGram. The issue with pretty much all of these is that valid ID is required, and they have extended validation for know your customer laws as well as anti-money laundering laws, especially the exchanges. And there's also cameras you have to deal with if you're doing a wire transfer a lot of times, and then actually talking to employees or the other customers in the office. So a way around this that I saw that was kind of cute was called an ATM runner scam. And what this is you would give your, it's not actually a scam, it's just a process for cleaning money. So you give your dirty Bitcoins to an individual or a business on the dark web, and they would actually have real accounts hooked up to Bitcoin exchanges, like Circle, Coinbase, or Zappo. And that would be linked to their bank account. And then a bunch of what are called runners would go to a whole bunch of different ATMs and pull out cash from that bank account. And then they would actually physically mail you the cash to whatever address you gave them. The downside to this is you gave some criminals your address now. So there's that. You can also do some cute scams by doing freelance work, or not actually doing the work but saying you're going to. Freelancer, Coinality, and CryptoGrind all accept Bitcoin as both payment and reception of funds. So what you do is you set up accounts as both somebody who needs freelance work done and somebody who's offering freelance work. So you control both accounts, and then you just move the money through between them using the website as your washing machine. Another way that you can do this is setting up your own web shop for, I don't know, offering Reiki healing over the internet or something. But you could set up a Square account, a Stripe account, Shopify, or Braintree to actually receive funds. Again, you're both the customer and the service provider in this instance, just moving your dirty Bitcoins through their website and their accounts. So some of the guides I saw for laundering Bitcoins were particularly evil and soulless, and they were talking about starting your own charity. You get bonus points if you have SSL locks all over your website, because then it's totally legit. They had guides for starting your own church, starting your own political action committee, and then you would just launder your Bitcoins through those. And the really evil ones also said, the added bonus is that if you start a charity to launder your money, other people might actually give you their money for the charity. So yeah, that was terrible. Some of the platforms that are used for this, Chimp, PayPal, PayPal Charity has its own little thing. There's a Network for Good, which is fairly new, smaller, but they do allow Bitcoin as well. GiveWell and IATS are other options that I saw in the guides for these. So what we did is we looked at, we looked at how they actually get into the accounts, what tools and types of traffic they use, and the targeting of these rewards accounts, how they actually make Bitcoin off of them on these darknet markets and forums, and then some of the ways that they turn that Bitcoin into other types of money that they can actually use with probably not getting caught. So I'm sure I don't have, here comes that boy. I'm sure I don't have, all of the methods that could be used to either launder Bitcoins or all of the defenses against account checker gangs, because of course we only saw what we saw, right? If you all run into any of these things and have more information or have questions, please, please, please email me, because I do love talking about all of these things. Thank you, and I've got, I guess, 4 minutes for questions and comments. Yeah, those are usually on hacker forums, but there have been over the, I would say, past year or so, I've seen at least 3 different listings of people that are selling email address dumps for spamming. All right, cool. Well, thank you, everybody.